Warning: the five may contain discussions on topics such as death, suicide, rape, addiction, and abuse. Although these topics are approached in a therapeutic manner, they still may have triggering effects on some individuals. Viewer discretion is advised.
Human beings are crafted through experience. Each person, from the closest of friend to the most random of stranger, has a unique story crafted by the ultimate experience that we call life. Welcome to the five. The same five questions, a completely different experience every time.
I met today's guest probably about at least 7 years ago. I had just started in my new corporate job at the company that I worked for, down in the basement, and I was sitting in my office and I had a little bit of music playing kind of low, and one of my neighbors come walking up and was like, "Hey, I hear your music." And I thought, "Oh no, I'm not gonna be able to listen to music at work." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Is that Broken Bells you're listening to?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually, that is Broken Bells I'm listening to." And he's like, "Oh, they're really cool. Do you know that they're actually coming to Louisville like in a week?" And I was like, "No, but I've always really wanted to see him because I love the Shins, and that's the lead singer for the Shins." And he was like, "Yeah, no," I was like, "Oh my gosh." So he said, "Hey, I've actually got a cool place to stay in Louisville, and why don't we just go and see this show?" And this is literally the first interaction I've ever had with this person. And I'm like, "Yeah, let's go." So we pack up, we go to Louisville, and that began my friendship with Charlie. A friendship which I will say I truly cherish because Charlie is one of these people that absolutely lives life to the fullest. Like, we went and saw probably almost 200 concerts that year, just because if you count going to all the music festivals and everything we went to, and we saw so much just that one year and became like really good friends. And he would do crazy things like he would tell people that he was the owner of the club we were in, and they would believe him, and I was his bodyguard, and we would go right up to the front of these things and watch concerts. And I just thought, this is how I want to live my life. And I will say, I'm not a role model person because I've always been so dedicated to just wanting to live my life how I want to live my life. And I'll say my dad's a role model. And I'll say the only other person I can think of that's a role model is this person. So how about you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
First, let me say I'm just floored. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I forgot some of those great times we had going to concerts, and how many times we went to the Mill and Mine and went to Hangout Festival and Shaky Knees, and we need to start doing that now that COVID's over. Actually, I'm going to go to Shaky Knees in May, so we should just meet up, go. If you probably don't have the time though, so.
Oh, I'll make time for that.
We met at work, and so I guess I was probably over 60. Maybe surprise him a little bit that I knew the genre and the music that he was listening to. But I'm Charlie Mansfield. Let's see. I'm getting ready to turn 69, so I'm getting on up there. Pretty standard life. I was able to cram 4 years of college into 6 years, and got married when I was 21, and Phyllis, and we were married 49 years, almost 50 years, and made it through college, which I'll tell a little story about on the first question. Had got two wonderful children. Zed, who was named off a movie called Zardoz. You need to watch it if you haven't, from 1973. And then Avalon, who's named after a song done by Brian Ferry on Roxy Music. It's again in the 70s, but had a great career, just lucked out all the time, great jobs, no job's perfect, of course, but had a great career, ended up, raising the kids, getting them out of college. And then we moved to the country, and they've done great. I've just had a really awesome life, ended up working with Brad there at our place of employment, and we've had a good time. And I retired 6 years ago, I guess. Yeah, it's been 6 years, I guess. 6 years, and just been having a blast. Bought a little RV, traveling around the country with my little dog Bubbles, who's over there sleeping on the chair. And I visit my daughter down in Chattanooga and my granddaughter, Charlie May, which is an incredible compliment when your daughter names her daughter after her father, which is probably the ultimate compliment, you can have. And then my son and his wife in Asheville, North Carolina, that's not a bad place to visit either. So, in a nutshell, I guess that's it. Just having a blast, enjoying life. You retire, and it's just, you get a new perspective on life, looking at all your past and the interesting and fun things, sad things, weird things that we're going to talk about.
I'm very excited to hear this. So you ready to get started?
I guess so.
What's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to you?
When I first found that out, or knew this was going to be a question, I was like, oh, okay. And then I got to thinking about it, and I couldn't think of anything. I was like, well, what's that? It was like, well, is there, I've had lots of weird shit happen, but like, what's that one weird thing? I even asked my daughter, she says, well, Dad, you're just weird. I was like, no, weird thing happened to me, And I think the weirdest thing for me is it's more of a moment of time in my life, about 2 years. So, and it's when my wife and we just first got married, and we were 21 in college. And my dad had grew up from the same town and went to high school with the president of the university I was going to, and the same with the dean of student affairs. So, like I kind of was doing a menial job delivering toilet paper and paper towels and to dorms, just a little part-time work to help. So my dad didn't have to give me so much beer money. But they called me into the dean's office one day, and we just been married, and they said, well, we had a local business, upstanding local businessman that needs somebody part-time to work. And we were thinking, and we thought of you, that you might want to go do this job. And I was like, well, okay. And they said, and also, they supply a place to live for you. I was like, sweet, because, student, you don't have much money. You don't like to ask parents for it. And so I said, okay, sure. That sounds good. And they said, well, it's the local funeral home. So I was like, that's weird. You're 21, you're not thinking about anything like that. You're still invincible, I was like, oh, well, okay. Well, so Phyllis and I, my wife, we loaded up all our furniture, which probably was maybe a futon and a stereo and albums. That's probably the extent of our worldly possessions at that time. So we moved in there right above the funeral home, And first day on my job, I walked down and they give me keys. I'm like, I got keys to a funeral home. It's so weird, It's just 21, and okay. So I walk in the embalming room, and the funeral director's standing there, and he's got a middle-aged man he's working on. And so I was like, oh, hey, I'm Charlie. He grabs the man's hand and sends it out and goes, here, Charlie, meet Ed. So that was my first introduction to that, and I thought, well, this is going to be a weird job. And it was, so it wasn't, it's just not one weird experience. It's just that 2 years of being in that environment, not thinking about death. You're invincible, you're 21, got married, So it's, everybody in that, at least where I worked, they were very respectable people, respected, the deceased, and never, would do anything weird or, But what it did was, what was weird is, for example, you're not thinking, and then the next thing you know, there's an 8-year-old that's choked on a hot dog, and you're just like, what the fuck? I'm going to have kids one of these days, It's like, oh, shit, It's just, it's just a really, really unusual, just a weird experience for somebody young and not, and, and so one of my jobs, but since I was a part-time student employee, most of my job was cleaning, cleaning the toilet, cleaning the restrooms, cleaning the mom room, but at night they would have, as most, I don't know if they still have visitation, but they have visitation. And since we lived above the funeral home, and so I would have to stay down until everybody left, and start locking the doors and turning out the lights. And I would start like at the furthest away from the steps I had to go up to my apartment, and I would like click the lights off, and they always had to keep the lights on the deceased. It was shining right on them. So as I got closer and closer to the door to go to the apartment, I got faster and faster running. Here I am, 21, invincible, don't believe in ghosts, but, when that last light went off and that whole place was dark, I was moving, and I would go about halfway up the steps, catch my breath, then walk into where Phyllis was and say, "Hey, I'm home." Never would tell her that I was hauling ass away from the base, from downstairs, even though, there's no ghost, Well, some people may have seen ghosts, but I never saw any and all that. So, but it was just the 2 years that I worked there. It was really a interesting and weird, weird and like maybe like, that subconsciously set up, probably subconsciously set up some of the rest of my life, because there was a guy who knew, he was in sales, I guess, in town, knew everybody. And so he would come at visitation all the time, really happy, fun guy, super nice, getting ready to retire from a sales position. Where this was going. And was going to retire, come and work with us, part-time, just because he knew so many people, almost like an ambassador. Or one morning I walked into the mom room, there he was, it's one of those, like, you're 21, you're invincible, you're not thinking about it. And this guy is just like out of the blue, passed on, you're just saying, shit. I think then we went out and ate steak after that or something, it's like, you never know, it's just weird experience like that. Or, and of course, somebody who's, lived a long life and 85 or, and died peacefully, that's just part of life, but some of those unexpected ones were just probably set forth subconsciously, maybe consciously, to set kind of the stage for the rest of my life. Now I think back on it, and but I don't know if this, I guess this kind of falls in the definition of weird. It was kind of weird being in that industry, working, parking cars and doing that. And but yeah, I think and I know one time, just you think about, I had to go to the hospital and pick up an infant, and it was, you're walking through there and you're thinking some mother and father are devastated, and and you're, again, you're young, and all this kind of brings, like, makes you think about life, and so just looking back on that 2 years that I worked there, there you go, the dog. It was well, just there was weird events, weird things that made you think that, probably, and I know impacted the rest of my life, So I guess that's probably the weirdest thing for me, just to end up being 21 working in a funeral home for 2 years and living above it, and there's a million more stories associated with it. But, that's just, I think that was just the weirdest event. And I probably didn't think of it as weird at the time until later, I was like, that was weird. Because I saw there's other, weird stuff, but I won't. I'll tell you later because there's a bunch of stories, fun ones.
That actually makes a lot of sense to me because one of the big things about you is that you live life so passionately and like you don't waste time. Like you're one of those people that like when you decide to do something, you're going to do it. And you want to experience so much stuff. So I think like tragedy teaches us like things, tragedy, sickness, and everything teaches us really to appreciate aspects of life that we sometimes just think we have forever and we have all this time and we can always do things in the future. And when something forces you to look at that and you're like, I could not have tomorrow maybe. And it forces you to just say, I've got to live every day to the fullest. And so I think you can thank that job a lot for that, maybe more than you have ever given it credit for.
Yeah. It was weird, but it probably had a profound impact on the rest of my life,
Well, you ready for the next question?
I guess.
What's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you?
Okay. So this one was easy. This is actually, I was terrified, mortally terrified. I was probably 9 or 10 years old. My parents had gone out, babysitter there. She was probably 14 or 15. At my house. I was just a little fart. We were probably watching TV or something, and we hear the front door. Someone, and we're like, what the? We were just mortified. What the hell? Somebody's trying to get in. Then we side door, trying to get in, and then it dawns on me: is the basement door locked? So I'm hauling down the steps to the basement door, and I see the doorknob turning. And, I'm probably 70 pounds or something, and the door starts opening. I just knew I was going to get dead. And I remember running up, slamming my shoulder up against the door and screaming and beating on the door. Get out of here, get out of here. And I knew that it was an adult, probably, burglar of some sort. And he was just going to push the door open, Oh my God. And then the door closed back and I didn't hear anything. It's like, shit, where'd he go? And the babysitter was on the phone with the police and she was screaming at me, what's your address? What's the address? What's the address? And then we were listening, and I hear my freaking brother-in-law had come in early from college and was pranking us. But I was terrified. You think about the movies, you see that doorknob turning, like any of the scary movies, the doorknob's turning, you see it, you're like, I'll tell you what, I was scared the living daylights out of me. And, and plus I was like 9 or 10 years old, and I was scary. I was terrified.
I would very much expect you to be terrified.
I knew we were going to get killed. When that door opened, I just saw it opening up as that doorknob turned. I was like, this is it.
Yeah, there is absolute fear behind that doorknob that you don't know what to expect, but it's not good that somebody's testing all your doors, and it's probably somebody that's much bigger than you trying to come in.
And to see that doorknob turn, man, it was just like right out of the movies, Anyway, that's the most scared I've been in my life. I still pissed off at my brother-in-law for doing that.
So what is the most memorable moment of your life so far?
I thought about this a lot. Well, the first two things that popped into my mind, was the birth of my son Zed, and then my daughter Avalon. And those are probably the most memorable moments. There's lots of good memories in your life, but those two, they're just such great people, great kids, raising them was so much fun. They, Zed was born in 1979, and then Avalon was born in 1983, so they're adults now, we're friends, but seeing that little, Phyllis and I were 25 when we had Zed, and you're just like, what the heck were we done? Oh my gosh. So, but I think those are the most memorable, raising them. Back then we played Army like I did when I was little, but I don't know if we do that much anymore, but, and it allowed me to play, get back to being my kid, and play on the swing set and play chase. And then with Avalon played, with all our dolls and Barbies, and it's just fun. It was just a blast. And, raising kids is not easy, but just their faces and, and watching them grow, and that's just probably the most memorable, It's just kids to me. That's just me. But of course, I've had a lot of memorable moments, in my life, but that's probably the main ones, my children.
One thing I have to say that I've always really liked is that, I've got to meet both of them and hang out with them. And you guys are, like you said, you're friends. Like, your children they treat you just like friends, and you do like fun friend stuff together and everything like that. And, it's one of those things that I love and respect my father and everything like that. But we never got that friendship. Like, we're friends, but like, you guys are like best friends. Like, you guys do fun stuff together. And it's like, well, one thing is you are not your age. Like, you are like a very young man doing like young man stuff, going to concerts and staying out late, and, sneaking off and skinny dipping in a hot tub at Hangout and stuff like that.
I forgot about that. I totally forgot about that. And getting caught.
And getting caught by the security guard.
Oh, shoot.
So, you've got a really amazing relationship with your kids. And I think it started out like, just the names you gave your kids and everything, you set it up to be friends with them and just have this amazing relationship. And like that, I just highly respect that. And it's one of those things that I wish more people got to be friends with their parents, like your children get to be friends with you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's good. I'm enjoying it. Yeah, and now with a granddaughter, oh my gosh, am I trying my best to work on her? She's going to be a handful already. I get in trouble all the time for my daughter. Dad?
Well, you tell them that you were able to raise two wonderful kids, so you got some input on how this works. Well, the next one is always the hardest one, and what's the saddest thing that's ever happened to you?
Unfortunately, that's the easiest one. Phyllis, like I said, we were married when we were 21 and still in college, married, 49 years. And, she got ill later in life, had a tough road, and she passed away 7 years ago, January. But that's the most sad, to see somebody, and to see somebody that you've been with that long, they're never going to get to see them again, and she called her own shot. She's like, dude, it's time. And I was like, no, I've argued with her. And she goes, nope, call hospice, and talked to the doctor, and he said, "Well, yeah, we'll do it." And this, she picked out all the music, that she wanted to listen to. Leonard Cohen. I don't know if you know Leonard Cohen, but picked out all her music. A little bit of Jim Morrison, But yeah, that was the saddest moment. But all her family was here, and we had big plans to travel in the RV when we retired or when I retired, but it's just sad. It's sad, but she was very courageous. And back on the kids, she was extremely instrumental in their upbringing. I mean, we were a good team. But she was super influential in the way they turned out too. So that's the saddest thing is.
I think that's another thing that kind of made me really respect and everything. My mother had Parkinson's disease. My father took care of her and everything. And I know you kind of had a similar type of situation and everything like that. And I think it's one of those things that it can either make you bitter or kind. And it made you really kind. And so that was another reason. I just, I just highly respect you and everything. And I also saw how much you loved Phyllis. You kind of had like a swan song sort of thing going on. You could just see.
But she was like, dude, she just told me, she's like, you're a good person, which I appreciate her saying that. And she says, you're healthy. Go out there and live your life and, don't worry about it. Just take, and that's the kind of person she was. She just go out there and have fun, she's, so, just that, she was very unselfish. She was, she wanted me to continue and have a fun life, so but still, after 49 years of one person, it is, it's just.
And that goes back to making all those plans for the future. And it's one of the main things I want people to take away is live your life while you have it. Like, live it every day. Because you just never know when you're going to get sick or when somebody's going to pass away or you end up on that coroner's block. You just don't know. So you got to live it to the fullest every day. And that's a huge lesson I learned from you.
Thank you.
Which kind of leads us into the last question, which is, based on your life experience, what's the best piece of advice you can give people out there listening?
And I think that's one of them, like you're saying, is, live your life. You never know, when that logging truck, is going to cross the median, and you end up eating in front of a logging truck or something like that, So, within reason, live your life to the fullest, still, if you're young, still assume you're going to get to retire, and you'll have full time to go play. So still set back some money for, that time frame from when you retire to when you pass, that you can still continue to do fun stuff, that you don't have to sit on the porch, And the other one too, the first thing I thought of was like, I mean, I don't know the demographics of your audience, how old they are or young they are. They probably know this, but don't be an asshole. You don't have to be an asshole. You can be a good person, and it just makes everybody's life so much easier if you're just considerate, and you run across some just people that are assholes. Why are you being an asshole? It's just, I think that's kind of one just simple one. Just be nice. It's easy. It's not hard. It's harder to be an asshole, but we all have our moments where we, where we be a temporary asshole, when we're, lose it or get tired or something's not going our way. But in general, yeah, just be a good person, and things are so much better, So I guess that's probably the main two. There's a lot more, but just little ones. One more I will say, and it relates to what we were saying, is that after you've married 49 years, and you have relationships and you get pissed off sometimes, and you fight a little, and don't, and then you stand there, and that person's gone. You're looking, and they're gone. They're not, they're dead. And after a while, you think like, oh shit, it is all little stuff. The arguments that you have, the times you get a little mad at each other. It just, in the scheme of things, it just doesn't really fucking matter, all that small stuff, So it's like that stupid, don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. But when it comes to like a relationship, it's a lot of it's all small stuff,
That's some really good advice.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I really appreciate you taking your time and talking to me today. Like I said, I don't have very many role models out there, but I think I chose a good one when I chose you as being one of them.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
I want to thank you all for listening today. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Also, check out the video podcast at Handlebar ASMR on YouTube for extras.